The year was 1959. Deep within the freezing wilderness of the northern Ural Mountains, 9 experienced hikers disappeared under circumstances so strange that the mystery has remained unsolved for more than 6 decades. What began as an ordinary winter expedition would soon become one of the most chilling mysteries in modern history. Even today, investigators, scientists, and historians continue to debate what truly happened on that frozen mountain. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident. In late January of 1959, a group of university students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute prepared for one of the most difficult skiing expeditions in the Soviet Union. Their destination was Otorten Mountain, a remote peak surrounded by forests, rivers, and endless snow. The journey would test even the most experienced adventurers. Leading the expedition was 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov. Friends described him as intelligent, responsible, and an exceptional outdoorsman. Joining him were 8 other experienced hikers, each with the skills necessary to survive extreme winter conditions. They carefully planned every step of their journey, packed food for weeks, brought cameras, journals, warm clothing, medical supplies, and everything needed for a successful expedition. On January 23, the group left their hometown filled with excitement. They traveled by train across the Soviet countryside before reaching the last small settlement near the mountains. From there, they would continue on skis, carrying heavy backpacks through deep snow. The hikers kept detailed journals throughout the expedition. They laughed together, sang songs, joked with one another, and photographed nearly every stage of the trip. Looking at those photographs today, nothing appears unusual. They look like ordinary young people enjoying an adventure with friends. One member of the group, Yuri Yudin, was forced to turn back after developing severe pain in his legs and joints. He hugged his friends goodbye, promising to see them when they returned. At the time, he felt disappointed that illness had prevented him from finishing the journey. Years later, he would realize that saying goodbye had unknowingly saved his life. He became the only member of the original expedition to survive. The remaining 9 hikers continued deeper into the wilderness. As they moved farther north, conditions became increasingly difficult. Snowstorms reduced visibility. Powerful winds swept across the mountain slopes. Temperatures dropped below -30 degrees Celsius. Despite these harsh conditions, the hikers remained confident. They had trained for situations exactly like this. On February 1, they reached the eastern slope of a mountain known locally as Kolitsayakal. In the language of the indigenous Mansi people, the name is often translated as Dead Mountain. Although the name sounds ominous, historians believe it simply referred to the area's lack of wildlife. That afternoon, heavy winds and blowing snow made travel almost impossible. Rather than descend into the nearby forest for shelter, the group decided to set up their tent on the exposed mountainside. Many researchers believe they wanted to avoid losing altitude before continuing the next morning. Others think poor visibility prevented them from reaching the tree line before darkness fell. The hikers pitched their large canvas tent directly into the snowy slope. Inside, they prepared dinner, removed many of their heavy boots, and settled down for the night. Outside, freezing winds howled across the mountain. Snow continued falling as darkness covered the landscape. No one knows exactly what happened after sunset. There were no survivors to tell the story. Weeks later, when the group failed to return, families became worried. Rescue teams were organized, including experienced skiers, volunteers, soldiers, and aircraft searching from above. After several days of searching, rescuers spotted something unusual on the mountainside. It was the expedition's tent. As they approached, they realized something was terribly wrong. The tent was partially buried beneath snow. More disturbingly, the fabric had been sliced open from the inside. The hikers had escaped by cutting their own way out instead of using the entrance. Inside the tent, investigators found almost everything the group owned. Their boots. Their heavy winter coats. Food. Cameras. Maps. Medical supplies. It appeared that 9 experienced hikers had voluntarily left the only shelter they had in temperatures cold enough to kill a person within minutes. Why would anyone do that? Outside the tent, investigators discovered a line of footprints leading downhill toward a nearby forest almost 1.5 kilometers away. The footprints revealed another disturbing detail. Some hikers wore only socks. Others were barefoot. None appeared fully dressed for the freezing conditions. The tracks suggested they had walked rather than run, although the exact reason remains unknown. Following the footprints into the forest, rescuers reached a massive cedar tree. There, beneath its branches, they made their first horrifying discovery. Beneath the cedar tree, rescuers discovered the frozen bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko. Both men were wearing very little clothing despite the freezing temperatures. Nearby, investigators found the remains of a small campfire, suggesting they had desperately tried to stay warm after fleeing the tent. The branches of the cedar tree were broken several meters above the ground, indicating that one or both men had climbed the tree. Investigators believe they may have been trying to see their tent in the distance or searching for the rest of their group. The search continued. Between the cedar tree and the abandoned tent, rescuers found 3 more bodies. The first was Igor Dyatlov, the expedition leader. A short distance away lay Zinaida Kolmogorova. Farther up the slope was Rustam Slobodin. All 3 appeared to have been crawling back toward the tent before collapsing in the snow. Doctors determined that these 5 hikers died primarily from hypothermia. But the mystery was far from over. 4 members of the expedition were still missing. Nearly 2 months later, after the snow began to melt, search teams discovered the remaining 4 hikers inside a deep ravine covered by several meters of snow. What they found stunned investigators. Lyudmila Dubinina had suffered devastating chest injuries. Semyon Zolotaryov also had multiple broken ribs. Nikolai Thibault-Brignol had a severe skull fracture. Alexander Kolevatov was found nearby. Medical experts later stated that the force behind these injuries was comparable to the impact of a serious car crash. Yet there was almost no external damage to their bodies. No deep cuts. No signs of a violent struggle. It was as though an incredible force had crushed them from the inside. Another disturbing detail shocked investigators. Some of the hikers were wearing clothing taken from those who had already died. This suggested that the survivors had removed warm clothing from their friends in a desperate attempt to stay alive. The cold had forced them into impossible choices. One of the most talked about discoveries involved Lyudmila Dubinina. When her body was recovered, her tongue and parts of the soft tissue of her face were missing. For decades, this fueled theories involving secret experiments, unknown creatures, and supernatural events. However, modern forensic experts believe these injuries most likely occurred after her death because her body remained in running water beneath the snow for several weeks, where natural decomposition and scavenging animals caused the damage. Investigators also found traces of radioactive contamination on some items of clothing. This immediately led to rumors of secret Soviet military testing. Others believed the hikers had witnessed classified weapons experiments. But despite years of investigation, no evidence has ever conclusively connected military activity to the tragedy. As news spread across the Soviet Union, theories appeared everywhere. Some believed an avalanche forced the hikers to flee. Others suggested powerful winds created terrifying infrasound that caused panic. Some suspected military explosions. Others believed they had encountered an unknown natural phenomenon. More imaginative theories blamed creatures, aliens, or paranormal forces. Each theory explained some parts of the mystery. None explained everything. In 2020, Russian investigators reopened the case using modern scientific methods. After studying weather records, terrain, and computer simulations, they concluded that a small slab avalanche was the most likely explanation. According to this theory, a mass of compacted snow may have slid onto the tent during the night, causing the hikers to escape quickly. Fearing a larger avalanche, they moved toward the forest. In the darkness and extreme cold, they became separated. Some died from hypothermia, while others later suffered fatal injuries after falling into the snow-covered ravine. Many experts consider this the most convincing explanation available today. However, not everyone agrees. Some researchers argue that the evidence does not fully match an avalanche. Others believe important questions remain unanswered. More than 60 years later, no one can say with complete certainty exactly what happened on that freezing night. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. 9 experienced hikers entered the mountains. Only 1 returned. The snow eventually covered their footprints. Time buried many of the answers. But the mystery refused to disappear. Perhaps the mountains know the truth. And perhaps they always will.